Hey friends, it is Lane with Tim's Nation. I am here today to talk to you a little bit about the Custodes I'm bringing into DJ's Tyranids today. And today I am playing the Lions of the Emperor detachment, the new detachment that GW just kind of sprung on us with the latest balance data slate. I think it's fun that they're giving us these new detachments, although I wish they'd playtest them a little bit more because that Orc one, the Dekadaka one, is super strong. We're really worried about facing that in the tournament before they get a chance to tone it down a little bit, but I'm glad they're giving us some more variety in our detachments. So yeah, Adeptus Custodes, Lions of the Emperor, brings back a fan favorite stratagem, Unleash the Lions. It lets you split up a unit into individual models. They're looking to use that today, but yeah, the detachment, the Lions of the Emperor detachment, has a pretty simple rule. Anytime a Custodes unit, and that includes the Sisters of Silence, so that Anathema, Psychana, I'm just going to call them Sisters. It includes them. Anytime a Custodes unit makes an attack, if they are further than 6 inches away from any other friendly Custodes unit, they get +1 to hit and +1 to wound. Now, a lot of times the +1 to hit doesn't really help a little lot because Custodes always hit on 2s, but obviously if there's any penalties to hit, if something is stealth or -1 to hit, or there's any other that pop smoke or anything like that, at least you can ignore that. And sometimes it does apply in combat. There are some units that are neg to hit in combat. So being able to avoid any of those modifiers is a big plus too. So, but yeah, it gives them +1 to hit and +1 to wound. The +1 to wound is really strong because there are multiple units in the Custodes Codex that allow you to reroll wounds on top of that. So, for example, the Custodian Guard, the regular guard, they get, if they're on an objective they control, they reroll the wound roll. So that's shooting or fighting. When you pair that with +1 to wound, obviously it's strong. Of course, a big thing in this detachment are the Alaris Terminators. They get full rerolls to wound into vehicles, monsters, and character units. Not just character models, but any unit that has a character attached. That's shooting or fighting. So getting +1 to wound on top of the rerolling wounds, again, very strong. It's going to be great in fighting, of course, but the Custodes have so much strength 4, AP1, 2 damage shooting that as soon as you give them +1 to wound on those, they suddenly get a lot juicier. Especially even if you're going into something that's high toughness like T10 or 12, going from wounding on 6s to wounding on 5s, coupled with the wound rerolls, really adds up really fast. So we've got that, and of course I do have one squad of the jet bikes today, the Virtus Praetors. Their guns are twin linked, so those salvo launchers, when they're firing and getting reroll wounds, it helps a lot. It helps a lot if they're getting +1 to wound on top of the wound rerolls. So in addition to any units that have the wound rerolls, in general, it's just good. +1 to wound is strong anywhere. And especially going to be useful at the Sisters today because we've got one squad of the Witch Seekers. So they have the Scout move and they have Flamers. So their Flamers are strength 4. Getting +1 to wound with those Flamers makes them a lot more efficient. And I'm running a squad of the Vigilators with Alea. So they have fight first. I want to position them out somewhere kind of independent. So when they do get the chance to fight first, it'll improve their stats quite a bit. It really helps out the Sisters quite a lot too because they usually hit on 3s with their attacks. So we've got that going on today. We've got some great stratagems. I think what I'm going to do is this is going to be like a list. I'm going to go through my list, but also it's kind of almost like a review of the codex. During my going through the list, I'm going to go through the enhancements and talk more about them, specifically how they work. And then after I go through the list, I'm going to talk about the stratagems and how I plan to use them today. It's got good enhancements, really good enhancements, probably the best collection of enhancements in the game. And it's got excellent stratagems too, some key ones, some better than others, but still some really useful ones that I'm going to be trying to use a lot throughout this game. So let's get to the list and see what we got. So today I've got 1,990 points of Adeptus Custodes in the Lions of the Emperor detachment. Still, the points could use a little tweaking here. I have an extra sister in the Witch Seekers, an extra sister in the Vigilators. And I have 1990 points, so I guess playing around with them more, I could find a little more, make it a little tighter, but this is what we've got for today. So we do have 7 characters. So we'll start with Kyria Draxus. Now, Kyria Draxus, we know is really good with Custodes when she goes into a Custodian Guard unit. It gives her the full wound rerolls. It's super strong for her anti-infantry guns. But now she's getting +1 to hit if her unit is independent. And that's good for her because she hits on 3s naturally. Well, the Custodes usually hit on 2s. Now, she hits on 3s. So that's the only part where her attacks got a little swingy. But now that she's hitting on 2s, it just bumps up her efficiency a little bit more. So we've got Kyria in the list today. Not going to go over her a whole much more because, like I said, most people know what she does in the Custodes. So next, we have got Alea. I've never run Alea before. I'm going to have to proxy a few models here. So I have a Sisters of Battle Canoness. She's metal. She's on her little 25mm base. So apologies for that. But we're using Alea today because she's going to be leading a squad of Vigilators. Alea gives them fight first. So that's going to be very important for her unit. So her unit's going to get fight first. It's going to be a big deal. In addition to that, there's a couple other things she does. She has Feel No Pain 3-up against psychic attacks and mortal wounds because that's just what the Sisters of Silence do. And where to go? Oh yeah. Also gives her unit +1 to hit if it's below starting strength and +1 to wound if it's below half strength. Those kind of double up with the detachment rules, but it's there if they are, if they are close to other units, she can take advantage of that rule. But hopefully, she's just going to get her unit's going to be getting +1 to hit and +1 to wound all the time. She's 65 points. I could also take a Knight Centura, which is 10 points cheaper at 55 points, and that gives her unit +2 to move and +2 to their charges, which means they're more of an offensive threat, but I wanted to put her in here. I wanted to use Alea because she gives them that fight first to be more of a defensive threat, a kind of a counter-charge unit. That's how I plan to use them today. Custodes have enough units that go out there and fight. I don't think I need another unit that's going to be offensive and push forward and be aggressive. I want them to hold back and be defensive. So we've got Alea. Next, we do have an Alaris Terminator Captain, a Shield Captain, Alaris Terminator armor. I'm using spears on all the Terminators today, but I'm giving the Captain is going to use the axe. Now, his special rules are pretty good. Of course, he has the Captain ability where he gets a free strat per battle round. But his other ability is that once per game at the start of a fight phase, you can just decide that he's, or at the start of any phase, fight or shooting phase, anything, you can just decide that he's going to reduce all damage to 1. So any damage that he takes, the damage characteristic is reduced to 1. It's D6 +3 damage. It doesn't matter. It's just 1 damage. So that's pretty juicy. I've given him the enhancement, the Admonamortis. There we go. We got it. The Admonamortis is, for some reason, 10 points, and it gives the bearer +3 strength, +1 AP, and +1 damage. So I'm giving him the axe. The axe is kind of only AP 1, which can be kind of a bummer, but now it's going to be AP 2. And of course, it goes from strength 9 to strength 12 with this enhancement. It goes from flat 3 damage to flat 4 damage, which is hilarious. So he's ready to slap some stuff. Of course, if he is joined by other Alaris Terminators, he gets wound rerolls into vehicles, monsters, and characters. That just makes him extra juicy. Being at strength 12 and +1 to wound, it's just crazy. It adds up real fast. So we're moving on. The next, we've got a jet bike captain. So a shield captain on Dawn Eagle jet bike. So his ability is once per game. He can, at the end of the fight phase, as long as his unit is fought, whether he's engagement range of someone or not, he can either make a move or a fallback move. And you can use this offensively or defensively. You can move forward to push into your opponent. You can move back to get behind cover and be safe. It's really strong to be able to pop that. I actually have 2 captains on jet bikes today. So one of them will be, so I'm going to have one running solo. So in his enhancement is the Presidius. It just gives him lone op and stealth. So he's going to be able out there solo, playing games by himself. I'm actually giving him the Virtus Hurricane Bolter. My intention with him is that he's going to go out and skirmish in the midfield, take down some small units that might be out there to score, and then back away and protect himself and stay safe with his lone op and his move. So the bolters, I think, are a little bit better for dealing with small units of 5 or 10 models trying to pick those up. So he's got that. Then we have another captain who is going to be leading a squad of jet bikes. He's got the salvo launcher as well as the rest of the bikes do. But his enhancement is Fierce Conqueror. I freaking love this enhancement. It's hilarious. It's only 15 points. What you do is at the start of the fight phase, you add 2 to his attacks characteristic for his melee weapon for every 5 enemy models within 6 inches of the bearer. So it's like Blast for combat, except better than Blast, because you get +2 attacks for every 5 models, and it doesn't have to be even the unit he's engaging, just every 5 models within 6 inches. Yeah, so going into units of 20 orc boys or I don't know, 20 Hormagaunts maybe, he's going to get an extra 8 attacks on top of his already 7 attacks or 6 attacks. So, yeah, it's fantastic. I love it. It's a lot of fun. So we've got that. The only enhancement I'm not using today is the one that pops the guy back up if he dies on a 2-up. We know what that does. So I'm not going to test that today, but I wanted to use these ones. And then finally, we're moving on to Trajan Valoris. So Trajan is in the list today. The reason Trajan is in the list is because he slaps hard once per game, and as we'll talk about a little bit later, there's a stratagem where you can reset characters' once per game abilities. So the fact is that once per game, he can either, at the start of the fight phase, choose to have a 2-up invuln or have 12 attacks on his combat weapon. So I really want to have Trajan slap with 12 attacks twice per game. So that's the goal today. But yeah, other than that, he also lets his unit ignore hit or modifiers to the weapon skill and ballistic skill. He's going to be leading Custodian Guard today. But yeah, Trajan, he's solid, but giving him his special ability twice per game is even going to be solider. Moving on, we have 2 units for our battle line. We've got 2 4-mans of Custodian Guard. The Custodian Guard went down in points a little bit, making them more interesting, and the fact that they have wound rerolls is really strong in this detachment. So they always reroll wound rolls of 1, shooting or fighting, and if they are on an objective that they control, then they get full wound rerolls, shooting and fighting. So one of these is going to be led by Kyria Draxus. They're going to kind of stake out my deployment zone objective, and one will be led by Trajan Valoris to let him get in there and just get wound rerolls on his ludicrous number of attacks. Moving on, we do have 1 3-man squad of Virtus Praetors. These are the jet bikes. The jet bikes have the ability to drop some bombs when they fly. They can do some mortal wound damage when they fly over things once per game. That's fun. Yeah, once per game, after either normal or an advanced move, you just pick a unit that you flew over and roll a d6 for each model in the unit. For every 2-up, that unit suffers 2 mortal wounds. So we'll be using that once per game. Also, when they do advance, they do add 6 inches rather than rolling for that, but there's no advance to charge ability available. And these ones are equipped with the salvo launchers, like I said. The salvo launchers are really strong in the detachment because if they're out there independent, getting +1 to wound, in addition to their wound rerolls, because their salvos are twin-linked, it's gonna basically make a 4-man squad, the 3-man squad plus captain, hit almost as hard as a Caladius grab tank in shooting. So moving on, we got a few of the girls. We do have a 5-man of Witch Seekers. So the Witch Seekers have flamers. They do have a scout move, so you see those in most Custodes lists because that scout move allows them to get out there. You don't really have any infiltrating units unless you're to take an assassin. So the scout move lets them get out there and score secondaries early on, maybe an area denial or a cleanse, something along those lines. They do have flamers. They still also benefit from the detachment rule, so their flamers will be +1 to wound if they are independent, more than 6 inches from any other units. Meaning they would be a pretty good Overwatch threat. There's no AP on their flamers. There's strength 4, AP 0, 1 damage, ignoring cover, but getting +1 to wound just to make them a little more efficient. And then, as I said, we do have a 10-man squad of the Vigilators. So these are the sisters that have a great sword. So they don't have any shooting weapons. Their ability is that they are -1 to hit in combat. So if someone's attacking them in combat, they're -1 to hit. Of course, they're sisters, so they get their 3-up feel no pain to psychic attacks and mortal wounds. Their melee weapons are decent, but they get a lot better in this detachment. So each girl gets 2 attacks, hitting on 3s, strength 5, AP 2, 2 damage. So a decent little profile, but can be a little swingy because we're hitting on 3s. And this detachment, of course, then they'll be hitting on 2s, and +1 to wound is going to make them stronger. They're anti-psyker 5 up, and they are dev wounds. So even if we're not going to psychers, with the number of attacks we get on the unit, we'll probably get a few dev wounds through, so they'll do some damage there. But really, like I said, I want them here to be a counter punch because Alea is going to give them fight first, so they're going to be kind of a defensive counter charge unit. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to go with the full 10-man. I was playing with the points a little bit. With sister squads, you can do odd things like you take a 9-man squad and it'll be 10 points cheaper, but I didn't really tweak those enough. So, yeah, that's it, guys. That's all we've got for the list. That's it. That's it. No, it's not it. We're taking Alaris Custodians because they are great in this detachment, especially with a stratagem that lets them split up into individual units. So Alaris Custodians are... you can take a bunch of weird squad sizes, first of all. So today I've got 1 2-man and 1 5-man. So their special abilities are they reroll wounds into vehicles, monsters, and character units, which is, most of the stuff in the game you're going to put them into. And obviously when they get +1 to wound, that's going to add up really fast. Then, of course, they have a once per game ability where you can uppy downy them. You can pick them up and put them down. And pick them up, you can put them into strategic reserves, and then they can come back down the next turn or thereafter. They don't have to come down immediately. You can keep up reserve if you want to. That's why I've got a 5-man squad, so I can break that up using the stratagem, and then I can uppy downy them throughout the game for scoring purposes. Yeah, we'll be using them like that. But obviously getting them the wound rerolls when getting +1 to wound just adds up really fast. So the 2-man will not break up. That will go with the Alaris Custodian Terminator Captain, so that he can stick with them, and then he will get the wound rerolls because he doesn't get them by himself. He needs to be attached to the unit to get that. And obviously with his super strong attack with enhancement, that'll be a great buff for him. So that is it, guys. That is the list. Okay, so like I said, let's go through the stratagems a little bit because the stratagems are really important to this attachment, especially with our squads here. So first of all, we do have something called Gilded Champion. All these strats are 1 CP, so I'm not going to talk about CP with them. They're all 1 CP, and we have several captains in here, so of course we can use once per battle round. We can do a free strat. Gilded Champion, just immediately after one of your characters uses their ability, you can reset that ability because they have their once per game abilities. Almost all custodian characters have a once per game ability. Using the strat on them immediately after they use it allows you to reset that so you can use it again later in the game. There's a couple caveats. You can't use it twice in the same phase. So for example, if someone were to attack Trajan and he decided to use 2-up invuln, you can't immediately reset it, and then when he swings back uses 12 attacks. You can't use the ability twice in one phase. You can only do this stratagem on a character model once per game, so I can't infinitely reset their abilities over and over again. But still, I think that's enough throughout the game to really get a lot of value out of this. The ones I plan to use in this game, obviously, like I said, Trajan, he gets 12 attacks once per game. I want to do that twice per game. So hoping he survives with his unit long enough to do that. And then the Bite Captain ability is really strong to be able to back away once per game. Really the way his ability is worded is at the end of the fight phase, if his unit fought, and so the solo one can do this or the one leading the unit can do this. If they did fight, it doesn't matter whether they're engagement range of somebody or not, because they can either fall back or make a normal move. So if they killed the whole unit and they're standing there in the open, they can do it. Or if they're in engagement range, they can do it because it's fall back or move, and their move is 12 inches. So especially for the lone op captain, just moving him 12 inches away, even if he can't get behind cover, this is going to make him much less likely that your opponent will be able to shoot him. And then the regular bike squad is strong as well. It allows, in a trading game where oftentimes we're trading on objectives, this gives us a lot of flexibility as far as being able to back up and make it more difficult for someone to engage this unit after it's had a chance to do some damage. So anyways, that and the Alaris Terminator Captain, his once per game ability is in a phase. He just changes all damage to 1, meaning I can do that multiple times in a game. So I don't know. If he gets killed, it's not a big thing. The enhancement that lets him stand back up after they die, obviously, is really juicy on a Terminator Captain. But still, I don't know if I'll be resetting him today, but we're going to be focusing on the Bite Captains and Trajan for that particular stratagem. Next, we have Defiant to the Last. This is a fight on death strat. So it's 1 CP, and then it's fight on death. It's on fight on death on a 4-up. which is kind of swingy. But if it's a character model, not a character unit, but a character model, then it's a fight on death on a 2-up. Which makes it a little less risky. And now, if your opponent's coming in, you're pretty sure you're going to get wiped. Maybe you've got Trajan leading 4 Custodian Guard. Well, maybe 2 of the Custodian Guard fight, but Trajan is most likely going to fight, so it gets a lot more efficient then. And just with the number of attacks these models have, a lot of times they can trade right back. If someone's going to take them down, they can slap pretty hard and take down a lot of the opponents that took them down. So fight on death, pretty strong. We'll see if we're going to be using that today. Not sure if I'll be using that. Peerless Warrior. Yeah, it's precision for a unit for 1 CP. So instead of doing the epic challenge for 1 CP where a character gets precision, the whole unit gets precision, it's situationally very strong. You know, when you pull Assassinate for one of your secondaries and you just need to pull it off, or maybe there's a powerful unit or powerful character that really gives the unit defensive buffs or offensive buffs. This can be useful. I'm not sure if we'll use it today or not. I don't think so, unless I think he's got a 6-man squad of Zoanthropes with the Neurotyrant looting them, so that might be useful there. We'll see. Save this one for the end, guys. Then we've got Maneuver and Fire, Fallback, Shoot, and Charge. Obviously super strong in a unit, in an army that both shoots and charges very well. So 1 CP, Fallback, Shoot, and Charge. And then we have Swift as the Eagle. This is a counter move. So after a Custodes unit has been shot, you can spend 1 CP and move that unit D6 inches. Not super reliable with D6. You have to be really careful with that. I don't know how much I'll be using this today. We'll see what the situation is. Sometimes, based on where it is, maybe D6 will be just enough to get them out of line of sight from any other shooting. Sometimes it may push me forward closer to an opponent that's trying to stay away from me. But we'll see. Situationally, it could be useful. It might be useful with Kyria Draxus leading a squad of Custodian Guard if she's the only one poking out from behind terrain, so she can do her shooting, and if that unit gets shot, she can, after they shoot, she can move back. So we'll see. But the big one definitely going to use today is the final stratagem, Unleash the Lions. This is a fan favorite. I know a lot of people like this one. You can use it on either the Alaris Terminators or the Aquilon Terminators. The Aquilon Terminators are not very good, so we're not going to worry about them right now, but the Alaris are pretty good in this detachment. Basically, what you can do, you have to do it in your command phase, and it has to be for a unit that's on the table. I wish they didn't make that restriction, but they do have to be on the table. If you could do it for a unit that's in reserve and just shotgun them all over the table, that would be hilarious. But what you do is for in your command phase, for a Terminator unit that's on the table, you spend 1 CP, and then that unit breaks up into individual units. Each model becomes an individual unit with a starting strength of 1. So... And then, of course, if you have not used the Terminator's rule to uppy downy, you can uppy downy these individual models across the table. Now, in some ways, it's kind of counterintuitive to the detachment rule, where you get +1 to hit and wound if you're independent, because with all these little guys bopping around, you might not be independent with them. But it's a strong scoring piece. Obviously, running like 40, 50-point squads of sisters are good scoring pieces, but these guys have the ability to deep strike, of course. When you uppy downing them, you can pick them up, throw them on the table wherever you need them. So a lot more flexibility and movement there. Some people got really excited and put together lists of 18 Terminators. I don't think that's the way to go. I think that's too many. So today what I'm doing is I have a 2-man squad of Terminators that will accompany the Terminator captain. The idea being that they will stick with him and give him the wound rerolls for his beefed up axe that has the Admon Mortis enhancement. But the other 5-man squad of Terminators will start on the table, and I'll use that strategy as soon as I can, so I can start upping and downing those 1 or 2 at a time for scoring purposes. And sometimes if you just want to tie up a unit and prevent it from shooting, maybe you've got a squad of Space Marine Hellblasters, and you don't want them be free to shoot, and they don't have any way to fall back and shoot. If you uppy downy 3 separate Terminators, that gives you 3 chances to deep strike and make a 9-inch charge, rather than 1 chance to do it with 1 unit. So that kind of thing can be useful for tying up enemy units. It can also be useful if you've got an opponent that has some kind of counter move. A lot of Eldar units, detachments have abilities to move after shot or make counter moves. If you're throwing Terminators all over the table, it can be tricky for them to get away from you and avoid that charge. So I think there's a lot of play into it. Those are the stratagems. Here's the thing with this detachment. I think there are a ton of different options, and I don't think there's going to be a one mono build for this because there are a bunch of different units that benefit from this. We know Venatari are strong. I'm not running any today. They have Lance when they charge. They don't really benefit from the +1 to wound there, although they would still benefit from that from shooting, or if they were charged, or if they stayed in combat, they benefit from the +1 to wound. And Wave Venatari rapid ingress and bop around the table. A lot of times they are independent. A lot of times they're out there fighting by themselves. I could have run more jet bikes because, like I said, the salvo launchers are twin linked, and when they get a +1 to wound, that math changes quite a bit and gets a lot stronger when you're going after vehicles and monsters. And I've seen a lot of other things. Ran some practice games. A friend of the channel, Zach, he tried running a solo Blade Champion with the enhancement that makes him lone op and stealth, and that was interesting as well because he can advance and charge. You can spend the CP to reset that to allow him to do that again, that with the unit. The reset is only on character models, so I've heard of some people trying to use this with like the Wardens and reset their once per game 4-up Feel No Pain. That's a no. You can't do it on anything other than a character model. It says in the stratagem character model, not character unit. So make sure if you're playing against this that you're not your opponent's not trying to do that. But there are a ton of options. I think there's just a lot of things we could try with this. So I'm having fun trying a few things here. I think Venatari are still real strong, but we know what they do. So we're just trying a few other things here today. So follow me over to the battle report. Let's see how these lions do, and I'll catch you there. All right, have a good one.